So you've built a store, made a few sales, and now you're wondering, could I sell my business for $10 million and retire in Bali for the rest of my life? Hi, my name is Ben, the president of Zendrop. I'm the guy who actually understands the numbers. I have a background in investment banking, and I know how you can build and sell a business for more money than you've ever made in your entire life. I'm here to explain to you all the things that you need to know to sell your business, including what the heck is EBITDA, and no, it's not a supplement. So let's get started. So I got my first question, what even is M&A? And is it like a vitamin or something? Well, M&A stands for mergers and acquisitions, and this is just the buying and selling of businesses. So when you sell your company to a private buyer, that is an acquisition. When two companies combine, that's a merger. Next question, can I sell my business if I've only been running for like 4 months? Well, you can sell your business at any point. Realistically though, you probably won't be able to find a buyer. Most buyers want what's called a track record, where you have a long history of consistently making sales and you have metrics that prove the ability for your business to be viable and to have a path to growing even bigger. Here we have the next question. What if I just add AI to my store name? Will my valuation go up? Well, that's actually an interesting question because in the dot-com boom, there were instances where people just throw .com on the end of their company and they get massive valuations. When you take advantage of emerging technologies, it does tend to have effects where you create these bubbles where people value things more high than they probably should be. Realistically, if you just throw AI at the end of your name, but you don't actually have artificial intelligence built into your product, it likely will not fetch a valuation. Also, if you use AI, but you use it in a very simple way, people can see through that, know that it's not scalable or defensible, and that other people can very easily make that and compete with you, and it won't fetch the valuations, the same ones as if you actually integrated AI, built complex workflows, and had really detailed prompts on the back end. How do I go from a 1x multiple to like a Shark Tank multiple? Well, first of all, what does it mean by a multiple? When you look at the value of a business, a lot of people think that there's these really complex bankers who went to Harvard, sitting there with spreadsheets, building models, and then coming up with these valuations. That does happen, especially at the higher ends of businesses, but in reality, what you could do is just look at how much revenue you're making, or how much profit you're making, and then look at what other companies in this space have sold for, and then basically take a multiple of what did they sell for divided by what are you earning today. Given that you're an e-commerce business, unless you have highly recurring revenue and really high margins, you're most likely going to be valued off of your EBITDA, aka your profit. And so what you would look at is if someone in your space sold for $10 million and they were doing $2 million, that would be a 5x EBITDA multiple. In the e-commerce space, it's typically a 3 to 5 times, 3 to 4 times multiple on your EBITDA is common for businesses in the space that are growing and healthy. If you're flat, you're probably gonna get maybe 1 to 2x multiple. And if you're growing rapidly and have recurring revenue, you can get even higher than 4, 5, 6x. Why are some businesses worth 10x and mine's worth 1x? Is this like business astrology? The short answer is kind of yes. There's more of an art than a science to valuing businesses, but there's a lot of factors that go into a multiple. Really, at the end of the day, what someone is willing to pay for a business is based off of the market and the greater fool theory. The greater fool theory is, do I think that I could buy this for an amount that I could sell it for more in the future? So if you think about NFTs and crypto, a lot of the underlying value is just what people decide that it is. So if I buy something for $100 and it's just an image, why would I pay that? It's because I think someone else will pay more in the future. But there's ways that you can give investors confidence that your earnings will grow and the fundamental value of the thing that they bought will increase over time. So what causes things to be worth more than others? First of all is scale. The bigger your business, the more proven out it is. If you're $0 to $1 million, you're gonna fetch a smaller valuation than someone who's at $10 million or above. A lot of institutional investors like venture capitalists, private equity funds, these guys who are hedge funds that invest big checks, they won't look at a company until it's hit $10 million of revenue. And then oftentimes once you get institutional interest, it fetches a higher valuation. The next is revenue growth. Are you growing? Because if I buy something that has $1 million of earnings for $2 million and it's growing, then I'll recoup my $2 million faster than something that's flat. What is your revenue model? Is this a transactional revenue model where I sell something, they buy it, I never see the customer again? Or is this a recurring revenue business model where maybe I sell something up front and then I constantly refill it by selling packages over and over? Or maybe it's something that I just deliver continuously with subscription boxes. The longer that people stay, the more that they pay you, the more value you get a customer to pay you over their lifetime, the more valuable your business is. Next is your EBITDA margins. This is how much profit do you make per dollar of revenue that you receive. If you have low margins, that's not as good as people who have higher margins. If you have higher margins, it means that you have a lot of profitability that you can then use to invest in marketing, you can invest into product development, you can invest into growth. Higher margins is better. And then there's retention. For those recurring revenue businesses, the question is, if I get a sale, how likely is that person to pay me again? If they pay you every single time, it's 100% retention. If only half the people that paid you once pay you twice, that's 50% retention. Then there's other things like differentiation, how different is your product versus other people, competition, can anyone and everyone do this, barriers to entry, all those sorts of things all are factored in. Another thing is management. If you want to sell a business, it's very important that you do not become too important to the company as an individual user. If I create a Ben is awesome company and then I sell t-shirts that say Ben is awesome and it's just my face and they only sell whenever I make a video about how awesome I am, then when I try to sell my company, they're gonna say, well, you, Ben, have to stay with the company because you are very important to the business. But if I make t-shirts that say, this other place is awesome, everyone loves this place, and then the marketing is all footage of that place taken by other people, and it's much easier for me to sell the company and hand it off to somebody else, I am no longer a key man in that operation. And finally, it's the total addressable market. How big is the opportunity for someone who buys this company to continue to scale it? If I sell something that's only for a very niche audience, niche is good because you can differentiate, but if the niche is too small, and there's not a big community of people who are into this thing, then if you penetrate 100% of the community, you still can't make that much money. So it's important to niche down when finding what product to sell so you can differentiate yourself. But if you want to sell a business, you have to be able to expand your offering to a point where you can address a large market and grow so that the next buyer has a large opportunity as well. How do I find someone to buy my business? Craigslist? Actually, funny enough, you probably could find a buyer on Craigslist, but that's not the right place for it. One thing you could do is research who could be the best buyers and then reach out to them individually. It's a very tedious and difficult process, but it's where you can keep the most money. However, if you don't have a background selling businesses before, I would highly recommend doing something more professional. The other thing that you could do is hire bankers who do that process on your behalf. But again, unless you're a pretty well-scaled business, it might not make sense to you because they typically want to see a pretty hefty fee and they won't talk to businesses below a certain amount. So what do people who have smaller companies and e-commerce businesses typically do? Well, there's these online marketplaces where you can actually list your business, list the metrics, write up a thesis on the company, why they should buy it. And then there's a lot of buyers on those websites constantly looking for opportunities for companies to acquire. These are marketplace companies where you can actually list and sell your business without any technical background. And the better the company and the better the website, you might actually get people who help you fill out the forms and do all of the work because they have an incentive to make sure that you sell your business as well. How do I make buyers fight over me like I'm the last supplier on Black Friday? Well, there's really two emotions that go into that. That's fear and greed. What you want to do is make your company seem so awesome that the buyer believes that they have a huge opportunity to buy you. All those metrics that we talked about, that TAM, all these things that differentiate you, that's the greed aspect. And then the fear is one, you want to minimize fear that they'll lose money by proving that you're a solid business with good metrics and that this is not a bad decision. But the fear you really want to tap into, if you want the highest valuation, is that they'll lose the deal and lose out on the greed. And how you can do that is by creating competitive dynamics. If you have one buyer and you're trying to negotiate, they have all the leverage because they have the money that you want. If you have two buyers that are competing, well then they say, I'll give you this much. And the guy says, well, I'll give him a little bit more. If you have multiple buyers who really want you and you compete them against each other, you can create a bidding war which causes the price to skyrocket. So the best dynamic that you could have for your company is solid fundamentals, a great opportunity, and a lot of interest. So I wouldn't sell your company until you have at least multiple buyers, at least a stalking horse, and if you can create a bidding war, that's where you get the most upside. The world of M&A can be very intimidating, and I know that there's a lot more questions out there. I'm happy to do a part 2. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments below. Those of you who have a business and you want specific answers, I'm happy to answer them directly if you reach out to our Zendrop account and have a legitimate business. Outside of that, I look forward to helping everyone make more money than they've made in their entire life in a single day. Good luck.